It's been more than 4,200 days since Flint's children were first fed toxic water. And now the long delayed checks from a $626 million settlement are finally landing. But the damage is already carved into a generation's bodies and brains. I'm talking about elevated lead levels. I'm talking about developmental delays, impulsivity, emotional swings. These are all the neurological fingerprints of a crisis that never should have happened. Parents in Flint stacked bottled water in their kitchens for years while their kids battled the fallout that schools called behavior issues, doctors called symptoms, and the system, they just ignored. Researchers say exposure to heavy metals like lead, arsenic, and mercury doesn't just poison a child, it rewires their brain during the most critical window of development. That means trouble focusing, trouble regulating emotions, and trouble learning. A 2024 study found that Flint students saw major drops in math scores and a spike in special education placements. And new numbers from the RX Kids pilot program show how economic pressure made everything worse. Now, before the program began, nearly 22% of Flint's babies had at least one maltreatment allegation by 6 months old. Now, after the program launched, that rate dropped by more than 30%, which is amazing. Researchers say that when poverty meets environmental harm, families, they often crack under the weight. What makes this even more alarming is what we still don't know. There's still more out there that we haven't even calculated yet. Child welfare systems don't document environmental exposure. So the real toll on family stability, foster care placement, and child development is practically invisible. That means the United States doesn't have a clear picture of what a decade of toxic water did to Flint's children. Y'all, I- it's going to sound dramatic, but I literally stay awake at night sometimes thinking about uh, what happened in Flint. And I don't know if y'all know, I wrote a book on it. And I'm not saying this to sell y'all a book, I'm really not. But I wrote a book on it, and I spent a lot of time studying Flint. Spent a lot of time thinking about Flint. I spent a lot of time also thinking about Benton Harbor, thinking about Jackson, Mississippi, thinking about all of these towns where our children were getting Legionnaire's disease. Our children were drinking water that was so poisonous that the local automakers stopped using the water on the assembly lines and in the garages because it was rusting out the parts. That's right. The same water that was turning the parts the wrong color on a car was being used on our babies. It was a crime what happened in Flint. And what happened in Flint didn't happen just because we got bad luck or something got sprinkled into the water. This was about privatization. This was about neoliberalism. This was about city managers. This was about unelected officials, unelected power brokers taking over uh, control of the water supply. This is about trying to squeeze every dollar out. And as a result, we got a generation of children who were poisoned. It's really, honestly, that simple, and that shameful. I wrote a book on it. If you care enough to read it, it's called "Nobody: Casualties of America's War on the Vulnerable, from Ferguson to Flint and Beyond." Again, "Nobody: Casualties of America's War on the Vulnerable, from Ferguson to Flint and Beyond." I get to the root of both Mike Brown's killing, but also the water crisis in Flint and all the other ways that neoliberal capitalism has undermined our ability to protect or care for or invest in the vulnerable.